Hey everybody, it's Daniel Chang with VintageMagic.com, and we're with Paul Mastriano. Hey Paul.
Hey.
And then we got Brian Demars. Hey Brian.
Hey.
All right guys, so what we're doing today is we're doing kind of a three-part series on workshops, and the first video here is a deck tech. I was going to get that wrong. About a particular deck that Brian Demars put together. So Brian, let's take it away and share with everybody on this deck tech you got.
This is a version of Forge Master MIUD that I've been working on. I played it in the Gen Con tournament for buys for the Vintage Championship, and I went 5-0 and I won the 2 buys. So pretty confident this deck's pretty good. And it is an aggressive, creature-based, threat-heavy, disruptive workshop deck.
All right, awesome. Let's go through it from, so obviously the stuff on the right is a sideboard.
Yep, sideboard's over here.
And the left is the 3 rows right here, the big rows. So let's, so what do you want to do? Do you want Paul to jump in on the second row, and you want to start in the first row?
Okay, well, we kind of got it laid out in a specific way. So all the disruptive cards are like up here. There's a lot of disruptive cards. We got Chalice of the Void, which is a cheap way to keep your opponent from casting key spells. You can play it on 0 so they can't do their moxes, play it on 1 so they can't play their cheap removal spells.
You might play it on 2 in a later game to keep them off Hurkyl's Recall, but you have to be careful because a lot of your cards cost 2.
That's true.
Also very cautious, if you play Chalice for 2, it will counter a Chalice for 1 that you would play afterwards. I've seen that happen before.
Seen it too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
It wasn't me. It wasn't me. Okay, then these are our spheres. We have 4 Thorns and 3 Sphere of Resistance and a Trinisphere. And over here we have Lodestone Golems, which also function as sphere effects. So we have 12 different cards to increase the cost of casting spells in the game.
Sphere of Resistance is all spells?
Yep, Sphere of Resistance will make any spell cost 1 more. Thorn will make any non-creature spell cost more. Lodestone Golem will make any non-artifact spell cost more, which is pretty great. Every card in our deck is an artifact. And Trinisphere makes everything cost 3.
Wow. That's just unfair. That's why you only have 1. All right, guys. So then we have the other 2 annoying ones is the Tangle Wires and the Phyrexian Revoker, huh?
Yep.
Yeah, so Tangle Wire, 4 fading counters, right?
Yep, Tangle Wire, like a lot of people say, it's a card that looks very fair. At face value, you get 4 counters, and it's going to make both people have to tap 4 things on their turn, but that's not how it works at all. Your opponent will have to tap 4 things the turn that you play Tangle Wire. Then, during your upkeep, you control the order that the triggers are resolved, so you can actually reduce the fade to 3. Then you'll only have to tap 3 things on your turn, and one of the things you get to tap is Tangle Wire. So you'll end up really only tapping 2. And if you have cards like Thorn of Amethyst, Chalice, Sphere of Resistance, not Trinisphere, Trinisphere is a special case. These other cards work just the same whether they're tapped or
What isn't great about this guy? He is kind of a pseudo removal spell in this deck that can deal with planeswalkers, which obviously we have no direct removal to kill planeswalkers. And
Deck Faden in particular.
Deck Faden is public enemy #1 for this deck for sure. And it's also a great way to take out your opponent's mana because it can hit moxes, which is pretty interesting.
Speaking of moxes, we got all 5, right?
All 5.
And good old the Black Lotus. No explanation for the moxes or the Black Lotus. I think what we should talk about is your special guy here. The good old, what is his name?
Hangerback Walker.
Okay, so this is in Japanese, but why don't you explain this guy? Well, actually,
here's an English one.
English version.
Because people might not know what that card is. It's new.
This is a brand new card. It's from MTG Origins, and it is just perfect for a workshop deck. Costs XX, and it comes into play with +1/+1 counters equal to X. And he also has the ability to add additional +1/+1 counters to himself by tapping and paying a mana. But the great thing about this card is that when it dies, you just get a Thopter token with flying for every +1/+1 counter that was on it. So it's a big enough threat that they'll have to kill it, And then after they kill it, it'll turn into a bunch of little guys that they still have to deal with. It's also great with the Koldoth, the Forge Master over here, because you can sacrifice the hanger back to tutor up a different guy, and you'll get all those tokens.
Very good. And then, Paul, obviously we got the good old Metamorph. We can duplicate something.
Yep, Metamorph is, I mean, people used to play a card called Sculpting Steel, which only could copy artifacts, and that was good in its time. Phyrexian Metamorph takes it to a whole nother level. You can copy whatever the absolute best thing on the battlefield is most of the time. So Phyrexian Metamorph is going to be a creature or an artifact. So it could be Gristlebrand, it could be another copy of your own Lodestone Golem, it could be a Blightsteel Colossus. Phyrexian Metamorph, it does everything you would ever want it to do.
That's incredible.
And it only costs 3 mana because you pay 2 life with the Phyrexian.
And this particular deck, we have the, Brian, we have the Steel Hellkite and also the Sundering Titan. The Titan is the one where you, comes into play, can take away each type of land, right?
Yep, one of each land
One
type.
of each land type.
Also, when it leaves play, you get to do the same thing.
Yeah.
So both times.
It's a great thing. You can bring it out with the Forge Master, and then you can sacrifice it away, and you get them coming and going.
Their turn with the Oathstone play.
All right, perfect, Paul. So, last but not least, we have the typical fundamentals of Workshop.
The mana base.
Mana base. And then we have, obviously, Ancient Tombs and using Factories here.
Yeah, a lot of people play a
Souls.
split between Cavern of Souls and Factories, or all Cavern of Souls. I like having the threats, just more bodies to attack with. I want to be very threat dense. So I can just always be pressuring my opponent from every direction. The way the deck works out is it's like, a third of the deck is threats, a third of the deck is disruption, a third of the deck is lands. So
Probably the best solution that's been printed in a long time for a Workshop to help out in both of those matchups.
And that's creatures in the graveyard and in the deck, too.
Well, it stops
Library.
spells from being played out of the graveyard or libraries. There's maybe only one spell in the game that can be played from a library, but lots of them can be played from the graveyard. Then it also prevents creatures from entering the battlefield from decks, which would be Oath of Druids, or from graveyards, which is typically going to be Dredge. So both of those strategies, the Cage is very good at shutting down.
All right, Brian, talk about why did you pick Tabernacle here?
Tabernacle is another card for Dredge. It makes it so that they can't overrun you with an army of guys if they get their stuff out early. Because a lot of times you can lock them out of being able to play spells with your spheres, but they'll still have this leftover army of zombies. And they don't play a ton of lands, so the Tabernacle sort of makes sure that they can't just overrun you by going wide. The other great thing about it is because they know your workshops, they're going to have all of their artifact hate. They're going to have their Ingot Chewers, they're going to have their Nature's Claims, they're going to have their, what's the other one, Chain of Vapors, they're going to have it all. So this card can't be killed by any of those things because it's a land. They don't have any way to kill a land. So you can get it and it'll stay in play, and it takes away their ability to go wide. Another thing about the sideboard that's interesting is that, well, it only has a couple of, like 6 cards that are directly cards that people would recognize as being Dredge hate. I actually can bring in a lot of cards. These cards all come in against Dredge too. The Batter Skull is a card that once you get later into the game, you can pay 3 to return it to your hand, which will kill the Germ and destroy their bridges. And Ghost Quarter is a card that's great against Mishra's Workshop decks because it's all about mana. but it will also kill their bazaars or kill their lands to keep them locked under spheres against dredge. So a lot of these cards that I picked in here, I picked them because they can be boarded in multiple matchups. In particular, I want as many cards against dredge and as many cards for the workshop mirror.
All right, that's a great explanation. This guy we didn't really talk about. The last card, which one was this? Dismember?
That is Dismember.
And what does Dismember do again?
Dismember is a cheap removal spell that doesn't require colored mana to be played, which makes it quite rare. It costs you 4 life to play it, but
unless you have Black Lotus,
unless you have Black Lotus or Mox Jet, right? But it gives you a way to actually just kill a creature very cheaply. It costs a lot of life, but a lot of times it's worth it. You know, like if your opponent is playing, this card's really good against Delver, because if they have that turn 1 Delver, you can just get it off the board so it doesn't hit you. And it's
Trigon Predator.
Trigon Predator. It's also great in the mirror because the mirror is all about creatures. Yeah.
All right, guys, this is excellent. And do you have a name for this deck, or is it just?
This is just Forge Master MIUD. Yeah, it's pretty. It's pretty standard. The hangerbacks are a new thing. They were very good for me in the tournament. They were awesome in the mirror match. They were good against like blue-red Delver decks because what are they going to do? Bolt it? Give me 3 1/1s? It's terrible for them. But that's the main difference. I sort of trimmed some stuff down. I only have 2 big monsters in my deck. Most people play 3. They board additional big monsters in their sideboard. I streamlined it. I didn't think it was necessary.
Well, 9 out of 10 times you're going for those 2 guys anyway.
Yeah. So.
All right, guys. Hey, awesome work, guys. Hey, fans, thanks for watching, and check out the next video. It's just going to be more about kind of some opening hands. And then right after that, Brian and Paul are going to battle out and actually play a mirror match. And thanks again for watching. Take care. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.